Hello my dear sponge learners. I'm Ganesh, working as a developer in Java industry for a decade. I'm always keen to learn new things and share it to others. It's my pleasure to share my perspective of Java 8 to you. Java 8 is one of the major releases of Oracle. Previously we had a thought Java 5 is the major release as they introduced generics, functionality for handling threads, enum and so on. As Java user group grown drastically, we got too many recommendations and involvement to change Java 8 to support for next level. Why does Java need a huge change? Simple. Most of the architects favor for declarative programming than imperative programming because it gives a greater advantage while writing concurrent and event-driven programming. Some call it as reactive programming. Nowadays, most of us working on more than dual core processor. Java usually not using all the cores available in the PC to execute a process. Architects would always recommend to use thread to utilize all the core, but writing thread would be difficult and error prone. Java 8 learned its mistake from other languages like Scala, Groovy, and also learned from other libraries like Lambda, Goa, and Apache. I am not able to cover all the features available in Java 8. Instead, I would like to take it phase by phase. In this phase, that is phase 1, I will cover Lambda. Streams, parallel data processing, optional, compatible features, and other major changes will be covered in upcoming phases. Java 5 came up with a collection to handle thread pool, concurrent collections, callable features, and many more to give support to handle threads. As they know, thread is the major feature used by all over the industry. Java 7 introduced fork join to handle an execution with enough thread and also do thread stealing to utilize 100% of CPU. But it has implementation difficulties. That's why it's not get popular. In Java 8, parallelism is handled lot easier than before. Methods and Lambda as first class citizen. Now we are able to transfer behavior to a method, which help the method to execute the parameterized behavior whenever it's required. Stream is a great option. We would see most of the job are stream based. Example in Google image search is a good example for streaming. It will not fetch everything. As and when you scroll down, it fetches the detail from the server and show it in the screen. YouTube is a streaming process. So I think you got about streaming. I will explain how to write streaming project using Java API in my next phase. Default method. Before I explain about default method, I will just give a short story. 4 years back, I went to my colleague desk. He was a fresher and he was working on a defect. When I saw his code, I politely said, "Who wrote this dirty code? We shouldn't write code like this." He looked at me with a smile and said, "It was written by you 2 years back as per CVS history." On to you. Lesson learned. Anybody could do mistake. Java comes up with a lot of interface and give it to public. Most of the industries use the interface to customize their own implementation. Now Java 8 contributor like to add few more methods which would help for Java community. But it would be a breaking change for those who use their interface. So they came up with a concept called default method which should handle or which should add default few default methods to the interface without being a breaking change, without releasing it as a breaking change. Optional. Tony Hoare is a great software designer who introduced null in 1965. In 2009, he attended a meeting in London. He openly accepted introducing null is a $1 million mistake that he did. To avoid null pointer exception in Java, Java 8 introduced optional. It's a great feature too, and it is copied from Groovy, I think. And lot of changes in API level, especially for date and time. Date and time was horrible before. There are a lot of defects. Now they rewrote entire date and time package itself. Let me explain a use case. In an organization, there are a lot of employees. So the organization decided to filter out old age employees with a criteria age is greater than or equal to 45. So they have a list of employee details and they want to pass it to collection or some other library, and that library which should filter out the based on the criteria, that is age is greater than or equal to 45, and give the result set. That's what their expectation. So they ask a developer, internal developer, to write a code for the same in their library code. Assume these are the library code and this is the place where they're using it. I just to make it simple, I just keep it in a single file. If you want, you could keep it in different file. This one would goes to a library and this one in separate file. And here, for example, I just took an example with the 4 employee details and give it to a filter old age employee function, and in filter old age employee function accept employees and iterate all the employee details. For each employee it execute a criteria, and whoever match the criteria it add it into the result set. So it's clear, he sent it for a code review and it is getting passed, and give it to the client. And the next time the same client would like to add one more criteria, that is engage employee. So they request the developer to create one more library or one more API to filter out engage employee. So the developer pitch in and he said it's too simple for him, and he just do the copy paste. He copied old age employee and create one more function and call it as engage employee. Here he change the criteria as less than or equal to 25. Then before he gave the API to the client, he requested his coworker to review his code. The reviewer said it's absurd because it used a lot of code duplication. So the developer pitch in and try to reduce the redundant code by adding a boolean parameter. So here he has added a boolean parameter is engage. If it is a engage, then it executes the criteria less than or equal to 25. Otherwise it executes the criteria employee age is greater than or equal to 25. So the client should return the code in this way to figure out old age employee and engage employee, and they are happy too. And again they have come up with a new criteria. This time they want old age employee whose salary is greater than 3 lakhs, and this really makes him pretty weird, but he start to pitch in and write a code for the same. He write a code filter employee by age salary. Here he gets salary long value is greater than or equal to 3 lakhs and age is greater than or equal to 40. Then he push it into a result set and send it back. So this is what his implementation would be, and before he send it to client, he sent it for a code review. The code reviewer again asks why the hell you are using code duplication again and again, which makes the code complicated for each criteria added by the client. So the developer get confused and ask him what would be the best way. Then he said predicate is the best way. Then the developer tried to learn about predicate. Here they have created an anonymous class for the predicate method, and predicate method should override test method. So I'm just using this to implement unimplemented method. Here it's for old age employee, right? So I'm just making it as generic name convention, so I just make it as filter employee. Here also I make it as filter employee, and here I'm pausing for old age check, so I'm pausing t.getAge is greater than or equal to 45. Just give space. So it's working now. I just do the copy paste. Here it is for engage employee. So I'm just giving a criteria here as engage, that is less than or equal to 25 based on company policy. And then this is for having both the conditions to check young and old age. Okay, here they pass two things. The other stuff is t dot get salary dot long value as it is a big integer, and then add a condition for the same. Perfect. This is how it should be, and we should call print method for printing all the criterias: old age employee, engage employee, and old age employee with salary. Maybe the naming convention is not good for just now. I just leave it right now. And this is how he created it. And once he created, he goes to the reviewer and he said, look at this code. He said, my code was far better than this one. Then he laughed. The reviewer laughed and said, why did you use Lambda to avoid boilerplated code? So Java, to introduce this kind of behavioral parameter, we have to write a lot of boilerplated code. These are boilerplate code which we have to write. Just assume how it would be if we avoid this. That's why Lambda comes into picture. So here Lambda helps to create those kind of anonymous class without having any difficulties. So here they would say employee should get passed. Employee, and here there is no need to override functional descriptors. I'll explain what is about functional descriptor, and that's it. See the one in code now. So it's a employee t dot greater than this one will give a predicate. So this is the code looks like. E is a lambda function, and here I said e dot get age is greater than or equal to 5. That is the test I want to execute for this criteria. So it's just a one-liner now. So it's pretty clear and it's very simple to read. So now I'm going to change apply same lambda function for other two criterias. So now it's a one-liner code. It's very simple. So everywhere I'm using a lambda to fetch the data, to pass criterias to the function. Old age and young age and huge salary. So I just give the variable name here. It's for filtering it out based on old age, and the second one is filtering it out based on young age, and third one is about old age who's getting huge salary. So I'm just combining both the stuffs, old age dot and predicate has few default functions, and one of these is and, which as usual do a uncondition between those two functionalities. So old age and getting huge salary. So this is highly readable code than before, and it's very easy to add future implementation. If assume if a person comes and they want to see engage employee who is getting huge salary, then it's just a line of code. There is no need to do any kind of copy and paste of whole functions or something else. So they just do whatever they want, they could play with it. That's where the beauty of functional programming comes in. If you write pure functional programming without having any side effects, we could reuse as much as we can. Valid lambda expression. Here in the first line, we are passing string parameter and execute s.length and return integer. How it returns without a return statement? Java implied return keyword for one single line lambda execution statement. Second, getting an apple object and return a boolean. So we could ask any two predicate as far as we know, and this is a valid lambda expression. And the third one, which accepts two int parameter and it doesn't return anything, so it is also a valid lambda expression. And here we have 5 statements and we could figure it out which one is valid and which is invalid. Okay, the first one take nothing and returns nothing. Is it a valid lambda expression? Yes, it is. And the second one doesn't take anything, but it has a literal, a ragul. It means Java add a return statement because it doesn't have a return. So return is implied in Java. So the second is valid. And the third one by having an angular bracket. If you have an angular bracket, you could have as many expression as you want. But again, is return is mandatory here? Yes, obviously. If we have an angle bracket, return is mandatory. If you don't give return, it assumes it's a void method. Integer I. So the fourth one, accept an integer, and here they add a return method. Oops. As I explained in the second one, if there is a literal, Java add a return method implied. If you specified return by yourself, what would happen? Java throw a compiler time exception, so that's how it should look like. So the fourth one is an invalid lambda expression. To make it valid, we have to remove the return statement or push it into an angle bracket. The last one, string s, which has just a iron man. Why it just has an iron man? It doesn't have anything. Iron man is an expression, not a statement. To make it valid, I think it's better we could remove the angular bracket. Otherwise we have to add a return of Iron Man or system order println of Iron Man. That's where it gets paused, or it would be a valid statement. Valid lambda expression. What is functional interface? Functional interface is the terminology introduced in Java 8. When a function has single abstract method, then we call it as functional interface. Here array is a functional interface because it has single abstract method. Runnable is a functional interface because it has single abstract method as run. Here public interface smart adder extends adder because it extends adder, it has two abstract methods here. So it's not a functional interface. Nothing is not a functional interface, it's a marker interface. Java 8 provides set of common functional interface which would require for a developer to write the day-to-day logics, like predicate which accepts any object and return a boolean value. Here is it. And consumer, which consumes something and it doesn't return anything. And supplier, which doesn't accept anything but it returns an object. And functional interface, which actually accept an object and return different object. And unary operator, it's accepting an object and return the same object. That's the constraint. And binary, based on the expression, you could figure it out. And here is the table, which has almost all functional interface provided in Java 8 rather than wrapper objects. As it consumes heap, GC and immutable features, each time it has to do an auto unboxing for doing operations and may require to box it again and to create a new wrapper object. So Java 8 gives basic functional interface to support primitive. Here they are: int function, int2, double function, int predicate, long predicate, double predicate. They are specific to predicates, so which improves our operational time and also memory, any memory issues if you have huge number of collections, but most probably it wouldn't happen for small projects. And functional interface. Take a deep breath and try to figure out what would be the right functional interface which suits for each and every operations. The first one is functional interface and the last one is bifunctional interface. Figure out the remaining three by yourself. Here different functional interface. Beauty of functional interface is to reuse the functionality as per our need. Here we are able to pass same behavior to different functional interface. Here it is same in both the case, but based on type infers and target typing, it's very easy to adopt with any type of functional interface. So we could reuse same lambda to any place based on our requirement. That's where the beauty of functional programming lies. And obviously you know this will not work because object O it's not a functional interface and we couldn't assign any lambda expression to an object. We could assign it only to a functional interface. And closure. Instead of explaining closure here, I'm just planning to explain it in Eclipse window so that it's very easy for you to understand. Here it doesn't give any issues in until Java 7 anonymous class shouldn't access local variable until it is final. Here I didn't mention final, but I am able to access port. But if I change it to Java 7, I'm sure it would throw an error. But how it doesn't throw any error in Java 8? Because Java 8 implicitly check whether the port has been changed in anywhere else. If it doesn't change in any place, then it actually implied with final statement. Assume if I do a change of port value and assign port to 45, now it throws an error here and it says the local variable port defined in an enclosed scope must be final or effectively final. So the effectively final that compiler could do and it's not able to do because we are changing the value. Java not support complete closure functionality. Method reference. Method reference let you reuse existing method definition and pass them just like lambdas. In some case they appear more readable and feel more natural than using lambda expression. Here all files, this is a old type implementation and then we could add it using a lambda by specifying a type, and here I didn't specify a type, so it type infers, and the last one I just call it as method reference. In all these three I would say the last one it's highly readable. Constructor reference. We could apply lambda to create an instance too. Why should I use lambda to create an object with 2 line of code if I could make it in a single line? Here we could achieve lazy initialization. Whenever we need an object, just call the supplier to get the object. Here we have a collection of fruit supplier. Whoever consumes this map can create object based on their necessity. So we don't create an object and push the map to the consumer. So based on their need, they could create the instance. It's up to them. And they could create as many instances as they want. There is no restriction on it. That's the beauty of having a constructor reference. I referred most of my stuff from Java 8 in Action book. Thank you.